Every morning, Keanu Reeves followed the same routine. He woke up early in his modest Los Angeles home, brewed a strong cup of coffee, and stepped out into the quiet neighborhood. The streets were calm at dawn, with only the soft hum of his car engine breaking the silence as he drove to the movie studio. This routine was his anchor, a simple rhythm in a life that could feel chaotic with fame. But there was one small moment each day that made it special: the little blonde girl at the bus stop. She was about 8 years old, with bright blue eyes and a wide, sunny smile that could light up the whole street. Every morning, rain or shine, she stood at the corner, clutching the straps of her worn Hello Kitty backpack, waiting for the school bus. And every morning, without fail, she waved at Keanu as he drove by. It was such a small thing, but it warmed his heart. He'd wave back, sometimes with a quick nod, sometimes with a grin. If the traffic light turned red, he'd roll down his window and call out, "Good morning, kiddo." Her face would beam, as if that simple greeting made her whole day. Keanu didn't know her name or anything about her, but she became part of his mornings. He looked forward to her wave, her energy, her little spark of joy. It was a fleeting connection, a moment that passed in seconds, but it grounded him. In a world where people often wanted something from him, autographs, photos, attention, her wave felt pure, like a gift with no strings attached. He started to notice the little details. The way she bounced on her toes when it was cold, the way her ponytail swung as she waved, the way her eyes lit up when he smiled back. But some mornings, Keanu saw something different. The girl's smile wasn't always as bright. There were days when she seemed distracted, her small hands gripping her backpack straps too tightly, her eyes staring at the ground. Her wave would be slower, almost hesitant, like something heavy was weighing her down. Keanu noticed, and it tugged at him. He wondered if everything was okay at home, if she had someone looking out for her. But what could he do? He was just a stranger passing by, a guy in a car who waved back. Still, those moments stayed with him, like a quiet whisper in the back of his mind that something wasn't right. One crisp morning, everything changed. Keanu drove down the familiar street, his coffee steaming in the cup holder, the radio playing a soft tune. He glanced toward the bus stop, expecting to see her standing there, ready to wave. But the sidewalk was empty. No little girl, no Hello Kitty backpack, no bright smile. The street felt strangely still, like it was holding its breath. Keanu's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His heart sank, a cold knot forming in his chest. He tried to brush it off. Maybe she's sick, he thought. Maybe she's just late, or she had a doctor's appointment. But deep down, he knew it wasn't that simple. Something felt wrong, very wrong. He kept driving, heading toward the studio, but the empty bus stop lingered in his mind. He couldn't shake the image of her from a few days ago. Her smile had been faint, her waves slow, her eyes distant. He'd stopped at the red light that morning and called out to her, but she'd only given a small nod before looking away, like she was carrying a secret she couldn't share. The light had turned green, and he'd driven off, telling himself it was nothing. But now, with her gone, he wasn't so sure. Keanu's foot eased off the gas. He couldn't just keep driving. Not today. He made a quick decision and turned the car around, heading back to the neighborhood. He didn't know what he was going to do, but he had to check. He had to know she was okay. His gut was screaming at him, and Keanu had learned long ago to trust his instincts. He'd spent years reading people, noticing the small things others missed. The tension in a voice, the flicker of fear in someone's eyes. And right now, every instinct told him this was more than a missed bus. He pulled up near the bus stop and scanned the area. The street was quiet, the houses still sleeping under the soft morning light. Then he spotted Mrs. Thompson, an older woman who lived a few houses down. She was out on her porch, sweeping the sidewalk like she did every morning, her broom moving in slow, steady strokes. Keanu parked his car and walked over, his heart beating a little faster. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Oh, Mr. Reeves. Didn't expect to see you here." She set her broom against the porch railing, wiping her hands on her apron. Her face was kind but lined with worry, as if she sensed something was off. Keanu forced a small smile. "I just had a question. The little girl at the bus stop, the one who's always there in the morning. Did you see her today?" Mrs. Thompson's smile faded. She shook her head slowly. "No, dear. And that's strange, isn't it? She's always there, rain or shine. Never misses school." Keanu's stomach tightened. "Do you know her family?" "Her parents." Mrs. Thompson sighed, crossing her arms. I see her mother sometimes, always rushing around, never stops to chat. She seems stressed. I've heard yelling from their house now and then. Not often, but enough to notice. Once or twice, I saw the girl sitting outside on the porch late at night, like she didn't want to go inside. Keanu's jaw clenched. Yelling. A little girl sitting outside alone at night. That wasn't good. Do you think something's wrong? He asked, his voice low. Mrs. Thompson met his gaze, her eyes searching his. Do you think something's wrong? Keanu didn't answer right away. He didn't need to. The worry in his chest was answer enough. He thanked Mrs. Thompson and headed back to his car, his mind racing. The girl wasn't at the bus stop, and her home life didn't sound great. He couldn't just go to work and pretend everything was fine. Not now. He decided to drive to her house, just to be sure. The girl's house was a small, weathered place a block away from the bus stop. The paint was peeling, and the lawn was overgrown with weeds. The curtains were drawn tight, and no lights were on. It looked lifeless, like no one had been there in days. Keanu parked and walked to the front door, his footsteps heavy on the cracked concrete path. He knocked, firm but polite. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. He was about to turn away when he heard it, a faint sound, so soft he almost missed it. A whimper, like a child crying. It was coming from inside. Keanu's heart pounded. He knocked again, harder. Hello. Is anyone there? Silence. Then a whisper, barely audible. Help. Keanu froze. It was her. The little girl was inside, and she was in trouble. His mind raced. He wasn't a cop or a hero. He was just a guy who waved at a kid every morning. But he couldn't walk away. He tried the doorknob. Locked. He glanced around the street. No one was around, no neighbors watching, no cars passing by. He took a deep breath, stepped back, and rammed his shoulder into the door. Once. Twice. On the third try, the lock gave way, and the door swung open with a groan. Inside, the house was dark and cold. The air smelled stale, like it hadn't been aired out in days. Keanu's eyes adjusted to the dim light, and then he saw her. The little girl was in the corner of the living room, curled up on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest. Her Hello Kitty backpack lay beside her, torn at the straps. Her blonde hair was messy, her skin pale, her eyes red and puffy from crying. When she looked up and saw Keanu, her face crumpled, and she ran to him, throwing her small arms around his waist. Keanu knelt down, catching her as she clung to him, her body shaking. It's okay, he said softly, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. I'm here. You're safe. She sobbed into his shoulder, her small frame trembling. Keanu gently pulled back, looking into her tear-filled eyes. What's your name, kiddo? Emily, she whispered, her voice barely there. Emily, where's your mom? Her lip quivered, and she said one word that hit Keanu like a punch. Gone. Keanu's stomach dropped. He looked around the room. Empty food wrappers were scattered on the floor, and a single blanket was crumpled where Emily had been sitting. A half-empty water bottle lay nearby, and a few crumbs were all that remained of what looked like a stale loaf of bread. The house felt abandoned, like no one had been taking care of her. He touched her forehead. She was burning up with a fever, her skin clammy. She was so light, so fragile, like she hadn't eaten properly in days. We're getting you out of here, Keanu said, scooping her up. Her arms wrapped around his neck, and she leaned against him, too weak to hold herself up. He carried her to his car, buckling her into the passenger seat. Her head lolled to the side, her eyes fluttering shut. Hey, stay awake for me, okay? Keanu said, his voice urgent. She gave a small nod, but it was weak. He slammed the car door and sped toward the hospital, glancing at her every few seconds. Her breaths were shallow, her face pale. Keanu's heart raced. He didn't know what had happened, but he knew one thing. If he hadn't come back, Emily might not have made it. The hospital's emergency entrance was a blur of lights and noise. Keanu pulled up, tires screeching, and carried Emily inside. Nurses and doctors turned, their eyes widening as they recognized him, but he didn't care. She needs help now, he said, his voice firm. The staff sprang into action, taking Emily from his arms and rushing her through the double doors. Keanu stood there, breathless, watching as they disappeared. His hands were shaking, but he didn't notice. All he could think about was Emily, alone in that dark house, calling for help. He sat in the waiting room, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. The hospital was too bright, too quiet. Every beep of a machine, every murmur of a nurse, made him tense. He replayed the morning in his head, wondering if he could have done something sooner. Had he missed signs? Those days when her smile wasn't as bright. Should he have stopped then? Asked her if she was okay? The guilt gnawed at him, even though he knew he'd acted as soon as he could. After what felt like hours, a nurse approached, holding a clipboard. Mr. Reeves? Keanu stood. Is she okay? She's stable, the nurse said, her voice gentle. But she was severely dehydrated and malnourished. We also found bruises, old ones, on her arms and back. Keanu's jaw tightened. Bruises. Neglect. His worst fears were coming true. Can I see her? Soon, the nurse said. She's resting now. A woman in a dark blazer approached, her face serious. She flashed a badge. Mr. Reeves, I'm Karen Dawson from Social Services. I need to ask you some questions. Keanu nodded. Anything you need. Karen glanced at her notes. The girl's name is Emily. We've been trying to locate her mother, but no luck so far. No known relatives. We're looking into her father, but there's nothing yet. Keanu's chest ached. Emily was completely alone. How did this happen? He asked. How was she left like that? Karen sighed. We don't know yet. But you saved her life, Mr. Reeves. If you hadn't found her, she didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Keanu left the hospital with a fire in his chest. He needed answers. He drove back to the neighborhood and found Mrs. Thompson again, still sweeping her sidewalk. She looked up, her face heavy with worry. You found her, didn't you? Keanu nodded. She's in the hospital. She was alone, starving. Mrs. Thompson's eyes filled with tears. I knew something wasn't right. Her mother, she had problems. I heard them fighting a lot. A few days ago, I saw her leave with a suitcase. She never came back. Keanu's fists clenched. Emily's mother had walked away, leaving her daughter behind with no food, no care. He thanked Mrs. Thompson and got back in his car, his mind spinning. Emily had no one. If the system took over, she'd end up in foster care, moved from house to house, forgotten. Keanu had seen enough of the world to know how kids like Emily could slip through the cracks. He'd met people who'd grown up in foster care, heard their stories of instability, of feeling unwanted. He couldn't let that happen to her. As he sat in his car, staring at the hospital doors across the street, a thought took root. It was crazy, reckless even, but he couldn't let it go. Emily needed someone, and maybe, just maybe, he could be that someone. He wasn't a parent, he wasn't family, but he cared. And that had to count for something. Keanu walked back into the hospital and found Karen Dawson. She looked up, sensing his determination. Mr. Reeves, I want to help Emily, he said, his voice steady. Not just today. I want to take care of her. Karen's eyes widened. That's a big commitment. You're an actor, always traveling, working long hours. Taking care of a child means stability, consistency. I know, Keanu said. I don't have all the answers, but I can't let her go into the system. She deserves better. Karen studied him for a long moment. There's a process, she said finally. If you're serious, we'll need to do this the right way, background checks, home visits, paperwork. Then let's start, Keanu said. Later that evening, Keanu sat by Emily's bedside. She was awake now, her cheeks a little pinker, her eyes clearer. She clutched her patched-up Hello Kitty backpack, holding it like a lifeline. When she saw Keanu, she smiled, small but real. You came back, she said softly. I told you I would, Keanu said, smiling back. He sat down, his voice gentle. How are you feeling? Emily shrugged, her fingers playing with the backpack's zipper. Better. But, her voice dropped to a whisper. What's going to happen to me? Keanu's throat tightened. He could have given her the official answer. That social services would find her a place, that she'd be okay. But that wasn't enough. He took her small hand in his. You're not alone, kiddo. I'm going to make sure of that. Her eyes welled up, but this time, the tears weren't from fear. They were from hope. Over the next few weeks, Keanu threw himself into the process. He met with social workers, filled out endless forms, and opened his home to inspections. His house, once a quiet bachelor pad, was scrutinized for safety and suitability. He had to prove he could provide a stable environment, despite his unpredictable career. It wasn't easy. His life was busy, his schedule packed with film shoots and travel. Friends raised their eyebrows when he told them what he was doing. You, a parent, they'd say, half laughing. You're always on the road. How's this going to work? Keanu didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let Emily down. Every time he visited her in the hospital or later at the temporary foster home where she stayed, he saw her smile grow a little brighter. She started talking more, telling him about her favorite books, her love for drawing, her dream of having a dog someday. Those moments fueled him, gave him the strength to keep going. Karen Dawson explained Emily's story in bits and pieces. Her mother had struggled with addiction for years, in and out of rehab, leaving Emily alone for days at a time. The bruises came from a neighbor who'd watched Emily occasionally, someone who'd seemed kind but wasn't. The system had missed the signs: overworked caseworkers, missed reports, a little girl who fell through the cracks. Keanu listened, his heart breaking for Emily. She'd been so strong, waiting at that bus stop every morning, smiling through her pain. As the weeks turned into months, Keanu worked to make his home a place where Emily could feel safe. He cleared out a spare room, painting it a soft blue, her favorite color. He bought a cozy bed, a wooden desk, and a bookshelf, filling it with books about adventure and magic, things to spark her imagination. He even found a new Hello Kitty backpack, bright pink and sturdy, to replace the torn one she loved so much. He spent evenings researching schools, learning about lunch programs and after-school activities, trying to understand what a kid like Emily needed. The day Emily moved in was quiet but special. Keanu picked her up from the foster home, her small suitcase in the back seat. She was nervous, clutching her new backpack, her eyes darting around as they pulled up to his house. But when she saw her room, her face lit up. "This is mine?" she asked, her voice full of wonder, running her hand over the soft blue walls. "All yours," Keanu said, ruffling her hair. He showed her the bookshelf, the desk with a set of colored pencils, the window with a view of the backyard. "You can make it your own, okay? Whatever you want." Emily nodded, her eyes wide. For the first time, she looked like she believed she belonged somewhere. Life with Emily wasn't perfect. There were tough days, nights when she woke up crying from nightmares about her mother, moments when she asked questions Keanu didn't know how to answer. "Why did she leave me?" she'd whisper, and Keanu would hold her, searching for words that could ease her pain. There were days when he burned dinner, forgot to sign a permission slip, or struggled to balance a film shoot with a school event. But there were good days too. Mornings when they ate pancakes together, laughing over silly stories about his movie sets. Afternoons when Keanu taught her how to ride a bike in the park, cheering as she wobbled and then soared. Evenings when they watched animated movies, Emily curled up under a blanket, her head resting on his shoulder. Keanu learned to navigate the chaos of parenthood. He figured out how to braid her hair, after several messy attempts, packed her lunches with notes tucked inside, and helped her with math homework, even when it gave him a headache. He started to understand her quiet moments, the times when she needed space or a hug. And Emily, she started to heal. Her cheeks filled out, her laughter came easier, and the fear in her eyes faded. She began to draw again, filling sketchbooks with colorful pictures of animals, stars, and sometimes Keanu, always with a big smile. One day, Emily brought home a drawing from school, a picture of her and Keanu standing in front of a house, a bright sun shining above them. "That's us," she said shyly, handing it to him. Keanu's heart swelled. He hung it on the fridge, right where he could see it every day. Months later, Keanu drove down the familiar street. The sun was rising, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. He slowed his car as he approached the bus stop, and there she was, Emily, standing tall with her new pink backpack. She looked stronger, healthier, her blonde hair tied back with a ribbon. When she saw his car, she grinned and waved, her whole face lighting up. Keanu waved back, his heart full. As he drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror, watching her climb onto the school bus, her backpack bouncing. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And for the first time in a long time, Keanu felt peace. What started as a simple wave had changed everything. Emily had a home, a future, and someone who would always be there. And Keanu? He had a purpose he'd never expected, a bond that made every challenge worth it. He wasn't just a stranger passing by anymore. He was family,